Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for joining us once again on the Back and Bone Show. I am Keith the Bone Cutrone, joined by my ever-faithful associate, Matt the Back Lovato. Today, we are going to be exploring the recap of the latest fights. UFC 225, Whitaker versus Romero, and Bellator 200, Mousasi versus Cavallo, and a couple other things that have happened lately. We're going to have a lot of fun here discussing those. This is really a more specific volume that we're putting in today. Still the same lighthearted antics that you've grown accustomed to when listening to the Back and Bone Show. We did have, as usual, some mic issues. For some reason, Matt's mic kept cutting out, probably because it's cheap and shitty, which is why we implore you, if you enjoy our podcast, to please visit our patron page on backandbone.podbean.com and see if you guys want to help us out a little bit. You know, proceeds all go to furthering the podcast. Once again, it is my pleasure to present to you the Back and Bone Show. Enjoy.
Turns all your bad feelings into good feelings. It's a nightmare.
An Uzi? I'm not from South Central Los fucking Angeles. I didn't come here to shoot 20 black 10-year-olds in a fucking drive-by. I want a normal gun for a normal person.
Whatever you're reaching for better be a sandwich, because you're gonna have to eat it.
You thought he was white before? You should see that sucking now.
I'll use small words that you'll be sure to understand.
All right, so second attempt, back and Bone Show. We're having for the, what is this, our 8th episode? So for the 8th time in a row, we are having technical difficulties with the mics.
Yes, we managed to get about 20 minutes in prior to this, but we had to start from scratch. So, no problem.
Yeah, but it looks like everything's working good now, and you know what? It's probably better this way because we get to relive 20 minutes of expert evaluation of fights. So you're welcome, everybody.
Well, we started by examining the UFC 225 fight card this past weekend.
Yeah. I think we kicked it off with Overeem and Blades, which
that was a pretty impressive finish by Blades. He KO'd him with some elbows, pretty brutal ones.
I really I appreciated the controversy that the Reem brought to the table in, what was it, the second round, when he caught him with that big knee and laid into him with that little hand combo. Didn't really manage to do much off of it, but he certainly let Blades know that he was in a fight still. Yes,
he did have some good moments prior to that finish. Overeem still looks like he has some fight in the tank, and it is, in a way, it's a bit of a shame because he's still capable of winning some big fights for sure. But the issue is not his abilities; it's how many times he's been KO'd.
Sure, absolutely.
His chin just does not hold up.
But you know what? Overeem had already had a very spotted record. Even before he really got big. Like, I remember I would watch Overeem back in Pride when he was super skinny, but he had gigantic biceps for some reason. Yeah, you remember that?
Yeah, no, I remember when he got when he fought Chuck Liddell knocked him out over there. Yeah. Shogun knocked him out.
Yeah, and he was skinny little Overeem, Valentine's little brother, and he was not the big show star. He was just like a really interesting wild card character. And he would get knocked out here and there. But he would knock a lot of people out. He was a very exciting fighter. But he had a shitload of KOs on his loss record. So.
Yeah, well, on his official MMA record, he's got 13 losses by KO or TKO. That doesn't even include his kickboxing record, where he has another 3 losses by TKO and KO. So he's been hit in the head quite a few times. And, you just can't help but worry about him a little bit. Like,
sure.
Man, that's a lot of knockouts.
But when he talks, he's very
he seems
coherent.
Very,
he seems like a really intelligent guy.
He's a pretty sharp dude for sure.
Mm.
I think with Alistair Overeem in particular, it's just also the nature of his knockouts that worry you, because he's had some.
They're usually pretty
vicious
brutal
knockouts. like all of Alistair, all of the times he's been KO'd, they're not typically light knockouts. I mean, if you look at when he got KO'd by Ngannou in his last fight before Blades, it was a Street Fighter
style.
Yeah, one of the worst of all time.
Tiger uppercut knocked him in the air. It was bad.
The KO prior to that against Stipe, it was a solid KO. I don't remember it being too crazy, but there's some. He's got some other ones on his record where they were pretty bad. Pretty much, but he did have a nice little streak there in Strikeforce. Well, when he was Ubereem, he had a nice little streak where he wasn't getting KO'd at all.
Well, I was gonna say, physically, he looked real good in this fight.
He did,
he looked like he was back on the horse meat.
Yeah, we had mentioned that he didn't look like he was eating the whole horse.
He
at least got a leg in.
He may have had a doctor recommended dosage of horse meat for this fight.
Yeah, he looked a little better, which is I wouldn't have any problem if they just took all of the former TRT users and just throw them in their own fight league and let them fight each other.
Yeah, TRT league.
That'd be
TRTFC.
really entertaining. Yeah, Yeah. There you go. A specific TRT league.
Yeah.
That would be incredible.
Just do it, guys. Just make it a thing. You know, some guys have low testosterone, and maybe they don't need to fight with the guys who do have high testosterone naturally, but because they got to have supplementation. But does that mean they can't fight? Come on.
No, they should still be allowed to fight. Another thing we were talking about, which I'm sure all of you who are listening know about this by now, was the CM Punk Mike Jackson fight.
Oh, before we get to that, because we go down a rabbit hole with that one. But
there's a lot to say about
we
that.
also mentioned the Rashad fight.
Yes.
So Rashad got KO'd brutally. I myself haven't seen it yet, but Matt was kind enough to spoil the surprise. No, I'm playing, but Rashad Evans he got KO'd by Anthony Smith from a knee. Man, it's brutal. It's pretty bad. Yeah, and you made some interesting points. I didn't realize how bad of the losing streak is that Rashad is on right now. He's on a 5-fight losing streak?
Yeah, he's on a 5-fight losing streak. 2 of those losses were split decisions, but regardless, for somebody who was at Rashad Evans' level at one point to be on a losing streak like that at this point in his career, being 38 years old, it's probably time for him to hang it up.
Dude, it's tough. It's tough to think about.
I'm showing Keith the knee that Anthony Smith hit on Rashad Evans, and I mean it's pretty clear he went fully out. I mean, completely.
Oh
to
my
sleep.
God.
Yeah. He was done. I think his I don't know. It's hard to say,
It is hard to say.
But it was
but
it was a bad knockout.
It's almost tough to look at. That shit, that was tough, man. Okay, so you guys just got my initial reaction of actually seeing that for the first time. That was
Keith just shed a tear.
Yeah,
for those of you.
I'm not even really a Rashad fan particularly, but fuck, that was pretty rough to watch, man. Because he looked really helpless. He looked very just I don't know, kind of like you see an old man slip down the stairs a little bit. You don't really want to laugh.
Yeah.
It's oh shit, is he okay?
Yeah, it's you're just with those guys that came out of that era that Rashad Evans came out of. He was the second season of The Ultimate Fighter, Yeah, Ultimate Fighter 2.
I remember on the Ultimate Fighter, I liked him a lot. Like, I thought he was, I was very impressed by him because he fought more than everybody else, and he won all of his fights.
And he was a smaller guy
was,
on that season.
Yeah.
Interesting season. They had Rashad Evans, Keith Jardine, Seth Petruzzelli. In the lighter weight classes,
Big
they had
Baby.
Joe Stevenson. Yeah.
Was that was the season they had Big Baby, right? Or was that just the heavyweights season?
Big Baby. Oh, no, you're talking... That was the one where Rashad coached?
That might have been the one where Rashad coached.
That was the one that had Kimbo on it. That was all heavyweights.
Yeah.
That was a crazy season because that was the one where they had Rashad Evans season. They had Diego Sanchez at welterweight, Kenny Florian. So they had some big names in there.
Yeah, that's right. That was a good season. They had a lot of people who became like really big stars out of that season.
Or was that season 1 I'm thinking of? I think it was that season.
Season 1 was the one that had
Oh no, I got those mixed up. Some of those guys I'd mentioned, like Kenny Florian and Diego Sanchez, those were from season 1. Season 2 had
Season 1 was like Forrest Griffin and
yeah.
And,
that was a fun. That was the best season. That was they had a lot of guys in that season.
Dude, the first season was fucking crazy. That shit was hardcore real world, but with fighters.
Yeah. Well, it's lame now, dude. I mean, it's strange to me because if you watch the UFC, they've gone backwards and forwards in certain ways. So, and it's arguable. But let's say from just a fighting perspective, some people would perceive it as going backwards, but from an entertainment perspective, you could say they've gone forward, I guess, because they've emphasized that more, the entertainment value, as far as the outlandish persona that the fighters put on, in the era of Conor McGregor and everything. However, as far as the Ultimate Fighter goes, over the years, they've turned it they're less about the drama and more into just about the sporting. So they've kind of reversed paths on both of them.
Yeah.
Because if you watch the Ultimate Fighter now, these guys are pros. There's no like drama really between these dudes. They're all like if they get into an argument, they'll come back later and say sorry. Like there's no like they don't hold grudges. I mean, they're like real martial artists.
Yeah. I haven't watched it recently, so I don't really know. Like I kind of like lost interest in the Ultimate Fighter back in the day just because reality TV isn't really my thing anyway, so I only would really watch it for the fights. So occasionally I'll watch an episode of it. I think the last one I saw was that first one where they mixed the guys and girls in it.
I think that was the live season.
Yeah, and I was just like, the drama in this seems very played out. It doesn't seem very organic and real, and I was just really watching for the fights. Remember that super dorky guy from Alpha Male?
Yeah, that was what's
his name?
God, why am I forgetting this?
He
guy's
fought in
name?
UFC a couple times since.
Yeah, he
right?
did. But what happened with him was
he banged that one girl.
Chris
and
Holdsworth.
Then he banged that one girl, and then he was like all bragging about it to the
guys.
guys.
That was Juliana Pena.
Yeah, Juliana Pena. Yeah.
Yeah. Apparently that Chris Holdsworth dude is a really, really good fighter. Like. Apparently,
really?
Over there at Team Alpha Male, he's like the gym champion.
Really? Because he's like a fucking geek, man.
No, according to his mixed martial arts record is 6 wins with 0 losses.
Really?
All of his wins are by submission. So apparently,
I thought he lost to somebody in UFC, but maybe I'm just
out of my mind. Happened? Apparently, he's just a ground stud.
Yeah.
And then his exhibition record, he won all of his fights on the Ultimate Fighter. But what happened with him, the rumor is, and I just pulled up the Wikipedia article, but I've heard on this a lot. Holdsworth's former teammate TJ Dillashaw is allegedly responsible for Holdsworth being absent from competitive fighting since 2014, when Dillashaw concussed him a few occasions with illegal knees during training, with Holdsworth taking an indefinite hiatus from competition since then. And the word on the street was, according to some of the interviews I've heard, is that Holdsworth would just get the better of Dillashaw in training, and TJ got frustrated and needed a few times, and but apparently if Holdsworth hadn't had the concussion issues that he's had, they say that he was on his way to becoming a champion.
Wow.
He's one of the at age 21, he was one of the youngest BJJ black belts in the U.S. And he got his blue belt from Hoist Gracie, his purple from Henner, Huron, and Rorion Gracie. So he's pretty legit, I guess.
Wow, I had no idea.
Crazy, right?
Yeah, it's funny the things that you find when you really like dig into a subject. But anyway, back on topic. So
Yes.
we talked about the Rashad fight. We talked about the Reem fight. I don't know why I'm using the people who lost names to identify the fights, but so we get to the CM Punk fight to continue the tradition. Yeah, so Mike Jackson, what a character. CM Punk. Enough said.
What
anyway,
a punching bag.
what a punching bag.
It was horrible. It looked like what's the guy's name on Mike Tyson's Punch Out? Is it like Left Hook Larry or
Oh, she's like the first guy who's all super awkward and he has that
it's like
crazy face.
Something Joe, I think.
Shit. I always think of Soda Popinski. Yeah, it's something Joe.
Glass Joe.
There we go. All right, yeah. So Glass Joe is the Punch-Out character, the wimpy Frenchman who gets knocked out because
Yes.
his Joe is glass.
Yeah, and you know, in CM Punk's defense, even though Mike Jackson wasn't really hitting him with too much power, obviously, he at least pushed forward. He didn't go down.
He displayed really the basic fundamental level of heart that is required to really just survive a fight. So you got to
Yes.
credit him with that.
Yeah. It wasn't, you know, at the end of the day, the guy is a multi-millionaire. He doesn't have to be doing this, so it's admirable that has the balls to put himself out there to do it. But I just don't know why. That's just the one thing that I look at and I watch this and I just go, why? Why are you doing this to yourself?
It's humiliating. Like, it's
Yeah.
humiliating to perform that way, to be honest. Like, to go out and take a guy who has so much social attention, he's like, the eyes of the world are on him because he's more famous than all the people who are in there fighting who are good at what they're doing. And he's just going in there like, it's like he's like an eccentric billionaire that's just like, did you guys ever see that episode of Friends where John Favreau or however you pronounce his name, he's like dating one of the characters on Friends, and he just goes, he hires this old kung fu master to train him, and he's like, I want to get into this UFC thing that's going on.
I have not seen
It's
this.
hilarious. It shows him like he fights Tank Abbott on the end of the episode, and he just like runs at him like with his hands up. He's like, ah! And then it just shows him in the hospital on the next scene. That's what it looked like to me.
Yeah, it's we were talking about this earlier, and we were saying it's really, really hard to believe that CM Punk has been training with Duke Rufus for the last few years.
Yeah, like,
because he just still looks so fucking awful.
yeah. He has this really measurable awkwardness that even an untrained eye can really see it, where like he's really hunched forward and like he has his hands up really high, like a really uncomfortable stance. He doesn't look like he's ready to fight. He just looks like he's...
It doesn't even look like... his body mechanics look so poor that it doesn't even look like he could be trained to throw a knockout punch.
Right. He doesn't look like he has potential to throw a knockout punch from the way he's set up to move.
Yeah.
And what I really wanted to talk about, as I mentioned before we had to cut out and restart, this fight felt very enigmatic to me, how bizarre it was. If you guys haven't seen it, it's not the most exciting fight in the world, but it really is worth a watch just because it's very strange. Like it appeared so odd and awkward that it's speculated that it was either a fix or it was a not a fix, but I like Mike Jackson might have been like paid some money to not knock him out or finish him.
Yeah.
Or he might have been like he might have been stalling for extra airtime to get his name out a little bit more.
I tend to agree with that because it was just really odd looking.
Yeah, like he was landing at will. He was way faster, way crisper than CM. And I don't know if he just had no muscle in his body, if he was just, a bag of bones throwing punches as hard as he could at him, but he would just hit and then hang out for a while and just kind of look at the camera and look over at Dana White off in the corner.
There did not seem to be any urgency whatsoever on the part of Mike Jackson.
Yeah, it was very strange. It was like I really don't think I've ever seen a fighter with that kind of attitude in the ring before, in the cage.
No, very lackadaisical, just odd, just really fucking odd.
It's almost hard to describe.
Yeah, you guys will just have to watch it. Hopefully, that's the last we see of CM Punk and Mike Jackson,
unless he fights Artem Lobov at 140 for some reason.
Strangely requested a fight with Artem Lobov, who fights at 145. I don't know. I think Artem Lobov would beat the shit out of him. But,
right.
We don't really have much to go off of because he fought CM Punk.
He fought CM Punk, which is no display of his skills whatsoever, and also the odd way that he fought CM Punk was also, if he has any knockout power, what he would do if he actually was putting the juice into the fight and really trying to take it to him. I saw just no killer instinct and no urgency, but he may just have been so far ahead of CM Punk skill-wise that he was just I can really take this fight however the fuck I want. There's nothing this awkward guy can do to me.
Yeah, I could see that too. Well, moving on from CM Punk, we had the Holly Holm versus Megan Anderson fight.
Mm-hmm.
Started off promising. Megan Anderson looked good to begin with on the feet.
She opened up with a great combo, really clean, really crispy.
Yeah, she looked very, very sharp on the feet. But Holly Holm just was much more physical, a lot stronger of a girl. Took her down and, kind of just had her way with her on the floor. Just
as a physical matchup, in fact, I really saw this fight as an interesting thing because not a lot of girls in that weight class are Holly Holmes' height. Holly Holmes has a height advantage on everybody. That's why she's head kicking people so easily. Her foot is already at head height for everybody else that she fights.
Holly Holm typically has a size advantage or height advantage against the people she fights. And then you take Megan Anderson, who's 6 foot, which is fucking gargantuan for the female division. I mean, she might be the tallest female fighter in the UFC.
Wasn't there that one girl?
There's Jessamine Duke.
Jessamine Duke. There we go.
She was about 6 foot, I think.
I thought she was a little tall. I thought she was 6'1", 6'2", something like that. But she wasn't any good.
Yeah,
she was very she was way too lanky and skinny. She couldn't do anything with her height.
She Megan Anderson, if she can figure out her ground game and do something with that, she seemingly has a lot of potential. She's obviously just got to get that figured out.
She's got to figure something out with she may have to go up a weight class because I really feel like until she puts a little muscle on, she's going to be vulnerable to getting worn out by more physical girls like how Holly Holm did.
Yeah.
She came out strong, she was faster, she was crisper with the striking, but by the time Holly Holm had wrestled her out a little bit, those big Holly Holm core muscles had really just taken all the juice out of Megan Anderson's arms, and she couldn't do much after that.
There could be some I think what they should do is maybe match up Megan Anderson with a more of a striking centric fighter next, just so we could get some impressive wins out of her maybe in the UFC.
But I would say that Holly Holm is a striking centric fighter.
Well, no, that's what I was going to like. But I agree. Yeah, she's definitely a striking-centric fighter. But I'm just saying, match her up with somebody. But she also has a very good ground game.
Right.
Match her up with somebody who has no ground game, and let's just have her beat the shit out of a few girls.
Just match her up with somebody who's gonna strike with her.
Yeah. There's there's plenty of those. Give her like a Betch Kohea or something like that.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that could be interesting.
But yeah, I'm still interested to see what comes out of her in the future. She's
Yeah,
still pretty young.
I would like to see what Megan Anderson can do against someone who's gonna fight her that way. Like, not somebody who's just gonna like stuff her and fucking salt her game.
It's kind of looking like they're gonna do. It's kind of looking like they're gonna do Holly Holm versus Cyborg potentially now.
Sure, that'll be interesting.
Yeah,
I
think Cyborg would probably beat the shit out of her because she's far too aggressive.
Powerful.
Yeah, I think really the only female I see even having a chance against Cyborg is Amanda Nunes.
Yeah.
She's the only one who can match her power, I think. Not even match her. She's just got a different style. When we've talked about this before, how Amanda Nunes is a lot more explosive with her striking, and Cyborg kind of just is.
I would hate to place any bets on that fight, like, because there's a lot of different ways that one could go, and that goes either way.
I'm placing my bet right now.
Okay, place
and
your bet.
I've been saying this for a while. I'm going Amanda Nunes.
Go Amanda Nunes. I don't give a shit.
I think that Amanda Nunes would. I think she might almost kind of like shock Cyborg a little bit with the.
You think so?
Yeah, with how hard she hits. I mean, I don't know. I mean, Cyborg is probably training with men who hit just as hard, but one of the common themes among the women who have fought Amanda Nunes, they all say that she hits like a man.
Right.
I mean, they say she hits insanely hard. Even like Kat Zingano.
Well, look at her. Look at her when she hits those.
Yeah, she's
like when she hits those people she fights, they just fucking crumple. Like, she's a power hitter for sure. She may be the first real power hitter in women's MMA.
Yeah, I mean, because
Like,
if you really look at like. Now, people might dispute that and say, well, what about Cyborg? Well, if you really look at Cyborg's
not
record,
a power hitter.
She's not. It's all TKOs.
Yeah, she's a fucking gorilla, like, powerhouse. And so when she drags you to the ground and beats the dog shit out of you, that doesn't really qualify as power striking.
Right.
That's damage dealing, you know? But that's not like when a crisp striker on the feet starts landing shots on you, and those shots are like devastating.
If you look at so like I heard Kat Zingano on Joe Rogan's podcast recently, and she was talking about her fight with Amanda Nunes back in 2014. That was the first time I saw Amanda Nunes fight, and I remember when I was watching that fight, telling Ariana that I think this chick is gonna be like champion one day. She's a monster. And even though she lost that fight, I just saw how vicious she was. I was like, there's not a lot of women who are going to be able to take that punishment. And Kat Zingano, when she was on Rogan's podcast, she was talking about how even though she won that fight, she had like post-concussion symptoms for a really long time.
Right.
She just got hit so hard. She said even from the ground, from the bottom, Nunes was hitting her so hard. So
that's really funny because what fight was on that? My sister was remarking on that. She was talking about like somebody got taken down and they were throwing little shots from the bottom, and Kim was like, "Why doesn't she just keep doing that? Hit her, hit her." And I was like, "Well, that's not a good idea to be trying to strike from the bottom. You don't have any leverage. It's all arm punches. You're not going to knock somebody out from the bottom." But there we go. Apparently, we
have an example.
Apparently, we have an example of where you can do that. Yeah, Amanda Nunes, that's an interesting prospect. She's a fucking savage, and she's tearing through everybody. I think even if she hits a wall and fights somebody that she can't beat, like say Cyborg overwhelms her and beats her, she's still gonna be one of those top tier fighters in that division.
Yeah.
I don't know how, you never know how a fighter responds to a loss. She could, if that happens, she could potentially crumple under it and it could fuck her confidence up. But I don't know. I see this solidity out of her where she's probably just going to be one of the, even if she doesn't become champion, she's going to be one of those people floating around championship for her whole career.
Yeah. Well, moving on from that, we had we got to Colby Covington versus Rafael dos Anjos.
That was a good fight.
Yeah, it was a fairly competitive fight, pretty back and forth. I mean, Colby Covington basically just won this fight utilizing his size.
He looked like he was 2 weight classes bigger than Dos Anjos.
Yeah, he just pressured Dos Anjos. He kept closing the distance. He didn't really give him any room to breathe. I would say he used his size, and he may have been slightly better conditioned.
I didn't see Dos Anjos. I didn't see him gas.
He didn't look gassed.
He actually looked really good at the end of the fight. Like that's when he really started opening up.
A bit at the end. That's right.
Because I think maybe, I don't know if this is the case, if Covington slowed down a little bit at the end, but he wasn't really swarming him as much, and it gave Dos Anjos a little bit of room to start throwing some combos, and he definitely landed shots through the fight. He just wasn't really able to open up at any point and do anything devastating.
No, he's number one. We had mentioned this earlier, but number one, he is just too. I think Dos Anjos is too small for some of the bigger guys in that division. Yeah. So if they matched him up with a Darren Till or Stephen Thompson or somebody like that, he's gonna have some issues.
Dude, those guys are way bigger than him.
Way bigger.
Yeah.
And if you
I forgot that was the same weight class.
Yeah. And even if you were to look at now, there has been some taller dudes that Dos Anjos has beaten in the past, like Neil Magny, but that's Neil Magny. But look at his fight with Ferguson in 2016. He had some issues with Tony because Tony's a lankier dude, and he's just he's got that weird style. But yeah, I can't picture, like, even if Dos Anjos had won this fight and he got their interim title, number one, I don't see him beating Woodley.
Yeah.
Number two, I don't see him beating Till or Thompson or some of these bigger welterweight fighters.
I don't see Covington.
Beating them either. Don't get me wrong. This was a fun matchup, but at the same time, it didn't really truly feel like either one of these guys were really the best welterweight on the planet.
No. And that's a hard statement towards Dos Anjos, because he's been a savage over the last few years, man. He started training with just became a monster. He was really good back in the day. Like when I first saw him fight, I think the first fight I saw him fight was Tyson Griffin, and he got him in that calf slicer and fucked his leg up. He showed some like really crafty jiu-jitsu, but he was it
might have been because it says here. Well, he fought Tyson Griffin back in 2009.
Yeah.
But he lost a unanimous decision to Tyson Griffin.
Yeah, he did. But I remember
fight, he got him in a calf
slicer that like fucked his leg up, and I remember Tyson Griffin got all stanky leg. He was like wobbling around on it, and but Tyson was a warrior, man. He kept up, and he was a little overwhelming. He was too physical, too strong, and that was the RDA I remember.
Yeah,
and then RDA came back out of like after a handful of fights of being like good but not overwhelmingly impressive, and all of a sudden he had like a 6-pack and fucking dinner plate pecs, and he'd been training with Rafael Cordero, and he just suddenly this savage striking. And
he they credit it to one of the big changes they say he made was obviously going over to train with Cordero. He really got his striking crisp. And Joe Rogan's always talking about his strength and conditioning changes that he made when he started working with Nick Curson. I've actually done a lot of Nick Curson's training protocol, because he has 2 videos that he released online. That's called ATP Volume 1 and Volume 2. And it's a lot of balance work combined with explosive plyometric work. Very, very interesting, interesting training methods. Super, super detailed plyometric works. Like he basically gives you this whole kind of the training system that he picked up. He actually picked it up from these the Marinovich brothers, who were two former NFL players.
He was wasn't he was like their student or whatever.
Yeah,
like he's there.
Yeah, and then Nick Curson kind of went off on his own, and he's
Nick Curson is he's like the house he's the house strength and conditioning guy for my roommate's gym that he trains at.
Oh, really?
His, Boxing Works, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And my friend April, she's a Muay Thai fighter. She's part of like his group that he works with. Yeah.
Well, he does as far as plyometric work goes. I think he's one of the best dudes out there. His stuff is really good. But I think with Rafael dos Anjos, he was always a pretty explosive dude, even before that, you know.
He physically looks so much different.
Yeah.
Like he's like remarkably.
There has been speculation.
Sure,
on,
dude. Yeah.
But what he did to get to that point.
Of course. Like
don't
that.
Want to accuse the guy if he hasn't been caught.
Yeah. If you see a massive physical transformation like that, like, I mean, yeah, there's obviously some speculation there of what could be the case. You know, it could be chemical as well as physical. But personally, I've been through some like pretty significant physical changes just from natural working out too. And I never used steroids for that.
Yeah,
but,
yeah. And that's the thing. That's the thing we definitely want to point out, because there's a lot of people out there who will kind of just jump to. You know, you could have a lot of these what people don't realize is a lot of these fighters, when they first get into fighting, they're not necessarily into going to the gym. They just like learning the techniques of fighting.
Well, a lot of them are martial artists. They're fighters.
Yeah, they're fighters.
And that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm an athlete too.
Exactly. So once you introduce them to a proper, strength and conditioning program, it can, change their physique quite a bit. So it's like anybody else. If you were to take them and you were to have them start lifting weights, they're going to make some transformations. So, it's like a lot of times you don't know what the case is with a lot of these guys. And especially for somebody like Dos Anjos, he's been around forever. He's been fighting in the UFC for 10 years now.
Yeah.
His first fight was against Jeremy Stevens on UFC 91 in 2008.
Oh man, that is a brutal welcome party.
I know, he lost that fight.
Yeah, I could have told you that.
Then the Tyson Griffin fight came right after that. And then his record was kind of spotty from there. More wins than losses, but
that's exactly what I remember, is him being just like that. But I really recall him being like what he really needed was to physical up. So that's not really surprising that the big difference there was him, putting a plate of muscle over his body. Yeah,
and he went on a couple of really good win runs there. So RDA, he's had some pretty good win streaks here and there, but I'd still really like to maybe see him go back to 55. I still think he looks great at 70, but I just think for him to compete with the elite in that weight class, some of those guys are just too big.
He's a solid fighter at 70. He's like I hate to use the expression like gatekeeper, but you know what I mean. Like he's at that level where it's like no slouches are going to come in and take RDA at 170. Like if you can go and beat him, then you're dealing with a top 10 level fighter. But also at the same time, it's not going to be a place where he's going to get to the title realistically.
No, and don't get me wrong, like Covington did not impress me really at all with that fight either. He just kind of...
I felt like he won off of size, man. Like more than anything, I think he just won that fight off of being good game planning. He fought the right way to win that fight, and but he used his size, and that's just not going to be the case against Woodley.
No, I don't see him doing very well against Woodley. I think Woodley is going to dominate in pretty much every area of that fight. But I also wouldn't see Covington doing very well against Till or Wonder Boy either.
Yeah, no, I don't think so either.
I don't think his transitions are clean enough to be able to take either one of them down. And he would just get eaten up on the feet.
Yeah, somebody with really surgical striking like those guys who is going to be able to, put one of those shots like right between your teeth and move effectively to put themselves out of range of your takedowns. Like I don't think he's going to really be able to make that work.
Speaking of which, what did you think of the Till versus Wonder Boy fight? Because I don't think we ever got a chance to talk about that.
Oh man, I wrote like 2 pages of notes on that. It was a really good fight. I thought it was very interesting. I think Till won that fight off of what is called cage control. For those of you who don't know what that is, it is basically the guy who's moving forward. They have sometimes it's referred to as aggression. The actual strike count was super close. It was really, really close. The landed strikes. Their styles were extremely similar.
Yeah.
And while Till claims a Muay Thai style, he really fought him with a very karate, very classical karate style. It almost actually there's this really exciting thing about that fight that it felt like an old school NHB karate match where these two hardcore karate masters were just fighting.
Right. It did. It definitely did. He definitely doesn't use a traditional Muay Thai style. And I agree with you. When the fight was over, I edged it to Till a little bit.
Yeah. Till got that knockdown in the in the last
without
round.
that
I feel like that
knockdown,
was
without the knockdown, it was close. But if any fight was a candidate for a tie, that would be
seriously
pretty goddamn close.
Without the knockdown, that's for sure a tie. Because also, I hate to score cage control when a guy's style is a lateral back movement counter striker. Like how can you say that the other guy's in control because he's walking forward when the other guy wants him to walk forward?
Yeah.
He's really controlling him on an even more specific level.
Yeah. And how about Till drastically missing weight?
Right, I forgot about that.
He lost weight.
Yeah.
He was 7 pounds.
Yeah, he was 7 pounds over. He was I forgot about that actually.
He just... So, Darren Till, he's a big dude, obviously. He's got some issues making weight. But I think, actually, it would be a good idea he looks a little soft to me. And I think it would be a good idea. What people don't understand is that the guys who actually do have some more lean muscle on their frame have an easier time of making weight a lot of times because your body is like a sponge and your muscle holds water.
Right.
It's easier for you to drain that sponge.
Well, fat also, I think, fat holds on to water tighter than muscle does too.
Right.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. But also, Till does look a little bit soft, but he does have that striker body.
He does.
That softer. We talked about this.
The upper part of his body, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, his legs are like football player legs.
The upper part. He carries 90% of his weight in his fucking legs.
Yeah, that's true. You'd think he could shed off that weight from his he could do that weight cut just from his legs alone. He just wears sweatpants when he's doing his weight cut.
His legs off,
Yeah. If he just goes in there, just goes in there in a wheelchair. Just start cutting things off. See what you can make weight with. But yeah, that was a great fight card. There was some really good fights on that one. I'm trying to remember who else fought that night. Yeah, so it was a good night of fights. We had Knight versus Americani, Talib versus Silva. We had Arnold Allen versus Mads Burnell. That was a really good fight. That was Arnold Allen. I remember him. I'd never seen him before, and I don't think I'd seen Mads Burnell either. But I remember Mads looked like a little midget version of Ragnar from Vikings, and Arnold Allen looked like a 10-year-old with a mustache. And we had Magny versus White. That was a good one.
That's right.
So that was a good night of fights. But let's talk about the real showstopper of 225, which is Romero versus Whitaker.
Yeah, Romero versus Whitaker. Man, what a fight that was. Might have been the best middleweight title fight ever. It's up there.
Very competitive. A lot of scrambles. A lot of, like, they were all over that cage.
Yes.
Like, big scrambles.
The thing I loved about that fight, it was almost like the polar opposite of Dos Anjos versus Covington. Because with Covington versus Dos Anjos, you didn't really feel like you were watching the two top welterweights in the world. Whereas with Whitaker versus Romero, you were undoubtedly watching the two top middleweights in the world.
Oh, man.
No speculation. I mean, just the two best dudes, and it was so close.
And it was so close that they were really, like, shutting each other down. Like, there was almost it almost felt at some point like there just couldn't be a finish because both of these guys are so good, they just weren't going to let it happen. They knew what to do, and they were active about it.
Like the willpower by both of these dudes that they... Like, fucking Whitaker, man. He might be my favorite fighter. That guy is just such a stud. Like, he's only 27, too.
Yeah,
but he
he's an
just
animal.
seems like he's wise beyond his years. Like, he's got so much fucking heart. And just that beautiful, just fighting instinct. I mean, it's just... You just can't teach that shit, what he has.
I was really waiting for Romero to be like, I love you.
I love you.
I love you, Whitaker.
Whitaker, I want to suck your dick. No, I'm just kidding. But no, yeah, he. Did you see Whitaker broke his hand in that fight? Clean break too.
Really?
Yeah, they showed the X-ray after.
Oh shit! No,
Right, right where his just below his thumb.
I heard him talking about
It was a full-blown clean. Just
man.
looked like you straight up took a saw and chopped it in half.
Dude, brutal.
And apparently that happened pretty early on.
I remember they mentioned that they were like, he's not throwing that hand that much. And
Yeah.
he was.
Well, if
he
you
was a
remember
warrior,
too,
but
in the was it the third or the second round when he started hitting him with elbows, and he had a. It's funny too because what happens with Romero is even if the other guy does damage and wobbles him, it gets forgotten because the damage Romero does is so impressive and so flashy that's all people remember.
Right.
So it's like
Romero is like the Terminator. He's
Yeah,
a
he
physical
is.
specimen.
Yeah.
I'm convinced that he was created in a lab
he
somewhere.
Yoel Romero, they took Kurt Angle, O.J. Simpson, and The Rock, and they spliced their genes together, and that's what came out. He's a freak.
Yeah.
He is a freak. And but what happens though is people just tend to remember, like in that fight for instance, a lot of people were saying that they thought Yoel won, and he could have very easily won. It was a close fight. But they kept citing how on the last round, he had Whitaker, he had him in some serious fucking trouble for that whole round. He had him wobbled, which I agree with.
Fuck, man, I remember he was like,
he was out on his feet for almost the entire round. But
still fighting, man.
But what people forget is that it was either 2 or 3. Whitaker was landing some heavy elbows, and he had Romero wobbled, and it was a close fucking fight. That's another fight. When we were talking about Thompson versus Till, and we said that if there's any fight that would make sense to be called a draw, it would be that. Same thing with Whitaker and Romero. But even if that fight had been called a draw, Whitaker still would win by default because Romero wasn't eligible for the title because he didn't make weight.
Dude, what's up with these great fights where somebody doesn't make weight?
Nobody's making weight anymore, dude.
Yeah, Romero only missed weight by like
0.2.
Like,
and they said that supposedly the commission wouldn't let him continue. He said he could have made the weight, but the commission wouldn't let him continue. And
was it a hydration issue?
I don't know.
'Cause they
Probably.
do the
maybe.
hydration tests.
Yeah,
now, so.
maybe. But even then, it's like still, it's. I don't know. And Romero,
what,
I like Romero, but the guy does have a past of doing some kind of shady incidents. So
that reminds me. Do you remember what they said about the Till fight though? How they made him because he missed weight so dramatically that they made him weigh in the next day at like 185. Or something like that.
He couldn't come in over. I think it was 188. He couldn't come over that weight.
How weird.
It's very weird. It kind of makes sense though, as far as punishments goes. I mean,
it makes sense, but it also is like kind of.
But
it's not really the way things are done. You know,
No, it seems kind of unethical. It's like
because it's kind of dangerous to
Yeah.
actually compete at a.
Yeah.
It's kind of dangerous to compete at a diminished.
Yeah.
Like weight at a diminished hydration.
Yeah, no,
level.
exactly.
like,
So,
that's-
it does seem unethical.
yeah, it's
Odd
a,
choice.
Yeah, it's a little bit archaic of a punishment system. It's like,
Yeah.
it's like why didn't they just tie one of his hands behind his back or something too?
They,
Like,
they released the video. Yeah, tie his hand. Fucking tie his dick to his thigh. and,
yeah,
no.
exactly. Tie his dick to his thigh. That's how he has to compete now. No high kicks.
Or you will rip his dick off. No, it seemed like they showed a video after the fact, like a few days later, of Till cutting weight backstage, and it was him like laying on the ground, and his team had blankets over him, and you know there was a point where they carried him off the treadmill, and supposedly his vision was blurred, and everybody was like, "This is so horrific. Weight cutting has to stop in MMA," and blah 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 blah. It looks like every other weight cutting video I've ever seen. Guys have been
true,
doing this.
but-
They act like this shit is new, you know?
No, yeah, I know no one's acting like this. It's not like this shit is new, but we really do need to do something about it. I mean, the only reason why anybody has to cut weight is because they know
there's
that
weight
somebody else is going to do it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna fight at 170, and I'm a 200-pound guy, and if I don't cut weight to 170, I'm gonna fight a guy who's 230 at 185. You know,
Right.
So it's really like it's so like brutal. But when you're at the top level of the game and you're dealing with guys who know how to fight and they know how to cut weight, you're like you have no chance if you're not doing it too.
Yeah, and you know, and it's like it's just a part of fighting. I mean, unless they just make it to where you just weigh in at what you just fight at what you weigh in at.
Well, they have a good thing on in 1FC. I can never really remember the way that they do it.
I
think they do
remember hearing about this.
They do like a
Is that where they like track the guys throughout the year?
like they follow their weight, and then
Yeah.
they go like, all right, you guys are about this same weight, so you can't gain a lot of weight, and you can't drop a lot of weight, and as long as you show up and you guys are around the same weight, it's fine. I don't remember exactly what their system was, but it was pretty smart.
No, yeah, you're right. I do remember hearing about that, and I think that is what they do. They have a year-round kind of structure. Because they had a dude, was it 1FC that had the guy that died cutting weight?
Probably.
There was a promotion that had a guy who died cutting weight. Well, multiple promotions
that's
now.
happened a few times. It's
Yeah.
happened in wrestling too. Like that's where people die is from head injuries associated with cutting weight and heart problems associated with cutting weight.
Mm-hmm.
It's never from the violence of the fight. It's always something stupid related to fucking weight cutting and shit.
Yeah.
But anyway, forgetting all that, back to where we were about the
Well,
the main event.
the interesting thing here too is you know, after you have a fight like that's that competitive between Romero and Whitaker, where do you go from there? Do you decide to give Weidman another title shot? Do you give it to Gastelum? Those are really the only two dudes that are lined up for that.
After Gastelum beat Jacare, I mean that really.
I would
boosted
I would prefer to see Gastelum versus Whitaker.
That'd be interesting,
But
for sure.
Weidman did beat Gastelum fairly recently when they fought. So, I don't know. There's arguments for both. I personally, I would rather just see them do Yoel versus Whitaker 3. When it's that close, fuck it. Have them fight again.
Sure.
If they had those dudes fight...
but back to back, I mean, you got to give those guys a little time.
No, they
like,
do need time. But
you
if
got to
they
give
did...
them time to mix their game up and...
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
But if they did have those guys fight a third time, you could argue that's like in the top 5 greatest rivalries ever in UFC.
Sure, yeah,
And the interesting thing about that rivalry is that it would be one of the few rivalries that had nothing to do with shit talk or
Yeah.
the two guys hating each other, just purely based on skill.
Right. It's just purely based on their ability to put each other out.
Yeah. Fucking incredible.
Yeah, I'd be really excited for that. But yeah, that was a recap of 225. Really, really great fight card. I mean, my big takeaway from it, what I saw in all the fights that I recognized that I thought was really cool to see was a a lot of skillful reaction to situations. Every fight, it seemed to be like the theme of the night. Not so much as toughness, not so much like exciting fights, but I just saw a lot of good moment to moment reactions in tough situations. The scrambles were really good. The clinches were really good. The striking was really good, and everybody really displayed professional level skills.
Yeah, it was it wasn't a bad fight card. There could have been more finishes on the main card, but
It's not a fight card that I would introduce a new fight fan to. Like if I'm saying like, look how fun this sport is to watch.
yeah.
Okay.
So on this one, it could have otherwise been a lackluster card, but the main event really, really saved it. Yoel Romero and Robert Whittaker just went in there and fucking burned the house down. So ended up being a fun one.
Yeah, I was pretty happy with it overall. The fight card came down to really that last one, and it ended up being a good time.
In July, we've got UFC 226 coming up, and holy bejesus, this one is stacked. You've got the main event, Miocic versus Cormier, co-main event, Ortega versus Holloway.
Right.
Which I love that fight for the same reason I love Whittaker versus Romero. Holloway versus Ortega, you have undoubtedly the two best featherweights on the planet fighting one another.
Absolutely.
I mean, without question, those are the two top dudes. Ngannou versus Derek Lewis, that's going to be a fucking fun fight. There's no way around it. You've got Chiesa versus Pettis, solid fight. Gokhan Saki is making his return. He'll be fighting Roundtree Jr. I don't know who the fuck he is.
Roundtree Jr. Let me get a look at this Roundtree character.
He's a African American gentleman.
What makes him such a tree and so round?
He is quite round.
Yeah,
He's got some round shoulders.
it's got a little bit of roundness to him.
Yeah.
The real Roundtree.
And then you've got Uriah Hall versus Paulo Costa. Paulo Costa is the dude I was talking about. Remember this guy? He's built like the Incredible Hulk.
Yeah, the most shredded guy in MMA.
He's 11-0, 91% KO TKO rate. I don't like this fight for Uriah Hall. I think he's going down.
I don't think.
I got a feeling he's going down. I got a feeling his whole family's going down.
I think Uriah Hall may get hit so hard in this fight that his mother will feel it.
Yeah, this is I don't know. I'm just gonna make a bold prediction here and say that Costa's gonna be.
Still sounds exciting.
Yeah, no, it's exciting.
I'm happy to watch it.
I love. How about Paulo Costa's nickname, the Eraser?
Jesus.
That's one of my favorite nicknames I've heard in quite some time.
It's a great movie.
Yeah, that's why I liked it. That's exactly why I liked it.
Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Eraser.
You know what's up with? I just noticed this, but Daniel Cormier's nickname is DC, and Stipe Miocic is just Stipe Miocic. I've noticed this in the past that it seems like heavier weight fighters, they don't as often have nicknames. Like if you think about a lot of the greatest heavyweights of all time, most of them don't have nicknames. Cain Velasquez, Fedor Emelianenko, Last Emperor. But he doesn't use it like that much.
No.
And they didn't give it to him till like later on.
Yeah.
Junior Dos Santos, Brock Lesnar, Bas Rutten, Shane Carwin, Frank Mir. Like a lot of these guys just don't have nicknames in the heavier weight.
Yeah.
I think it's because they just bigger dudes are already more marketable anyways.
Yeah.
So they're
They
just
don't
like,
really
you don't need a nickname.
You're fine.
They're
Just
like,
be big.
wait, what's your name? Brock Lesnar? Yeah, you don't need a nickname. Your name's Brock Lesnar.
That
You don't need
already
a fucking
sounds like a nickname.
Yeah, because he didn't even have a nickname in WWE. They just were like, yeah, you're just monstrous.
Yeah.
We don't need to nickname you anything.
You're just a big fucking gorilla. You'll just do fine. Yeah, so we had some really good fights recently on the Bellator card. I want to talk about that. Anybody see?
Yeah.
Anybody listening? Go ahead and respond right now. Did anybody see Bellator 200? No, you didn't. Fascinating. Let me tell you a little
Perfect.
something. We kicked it off. No pun intended, with Phil Davis, and he fucking head kicked Vassell brutally. Really terrible fight up until that point. Like it was just Phil Davis is a good fighter. I like Phil Davis. He liked one of my Instagram posts. It was really cool.
No shit, really?
Yeah,
That's awesome.
I posted a picture of some wrestling mats we put up in my backyard, and I was like, Mr. Wonderful liked your post. I was like, oh, that's cool.
Isn't that the most exciting feeling
Yeah.
in the world when somebody you kind of look up to
Yeah.
likes one of the things you post?
Yeah, but mad respect for Phil Davis. He's a great fighter. But this matchup, like, they both looked really slow. They both looked really awkward. But Davis threw this really. I mean, it was clean, but it wasn't really well set up. This head kick, it just kind of came from nowhere, and Vassell was just kind of looking at him. He was making eye contact, and that shin came up and just put him in fucking orbit.
You know who Phil Davis reminds me of as far as the way he moves? A bigger version of GSP. Do you see that at all?
Not really.
In the sense that
Could they have some similar movement patterns? But GSP is so much more tight and concise.
I agree, but that's what I mean though. Like bigger, slightly bigger and slower. Obviously,
Yeah.
comes with that. But they're both, densely muscled guys who are physically capable. But GSP, you know what I mean? He's never had that like real snappy kind of
Sure.
on his punches or on his kicks. They almost seem like he's like pushing into it.
Right.
Davis does that same thing when he throws a kick.
Okay.
He'll just kind of, it's like he pushes into it. It's like he doesn't have much snap on a lot of the shit he does.
But can you believe that Phil Davis just won a fight
With a head kick, I
That
know.
was so like
That looked
peculiar.
like a head kick that shouldn't have landed. It didn't look like it should have landed.
No.
It just did.
No. How about I don't remember his first name, but that guy Chalmers from the Geordie Shore.
I didn't see that
The
fight.
reality TV star from the
He's from Geordie Shore? Oh, that's the Jersey Shore.
It's the English version of the
Wow.
of
This guy won his fight, huh?
Yeah, the Jersey Shore, and dude, he didn't just win the. Well, I mean,
He's 4-0.
yeah, he goes by the nickname Joker. His last name is Chalmers, and I just thought that if my last name was Chalmers, my nickname would be the Superintendent. But I grew up on The Simpsons though, but so he fucking gets backed up against the cage, eats a couple shots, and then comes back swinging very recklessly, but it worked out for him. Clips the guy and catches him in a guillotine. Pulls this really, really deep standing guillotine. Pulls this guy's feet up off the ground and just tossed him over like a fucking bag of rocks. And that was the end of the fight.
Did you see? I didn't see this fight. It looks like Anastasia Yankova was on the main card. She lost her fight. Have you ever seen Anastasia Yankova? She might be the best looking fighter in MMA.
I think I might follow her on Instagram.
She's Russian. She is like really, really pretty.
Oh yeah, no, I haven't.
Like
seen
she
that,
doesn't
but-
look like she belongs near an
No,
octagon.
No, she should be
Um,
fighting.
But yeah, I mean, people
That
talk
face
about
shouldn't be getting punched.
people who don't know about Anastasia Yankova. People talk about Rose Namajunas being very
Wow,
pretty,
yeah.
and obviously in the past Ronda Rousey and Misha Tate. I would dare to say that this Anastasia Yankova woman puts all of them to shame. I mean, she looks like she could be a supermodel.
No, yeah, she's crazy hot. That's ridiculous.
And apparently she's a really good fighter too. I think that was her only loss so far.
I don't know how I didn't see that one. She was on that Bellator card.
Yeah.
I watched the whole thing. I don't know.
Maybe it wasn't televised because I know they'll do that sometimes.
Yeah. So the MVP fight.
Yeah,
against,
Michael Venom Page.
Yeah, against David Rickles.
Mm-hmm.
The caveman comes out in his gladiator shorts, looking pretty tough, looking pretty solid with his grimy face, and he got punched in the eye, and he was like, I'm going to the
He's just like,
hospital.
fuck this. I almost kind of admire that. That, and to me,
that's
takes...
a guy who's got priorities.
Yeah, well, exactly.
I want to see my children grow.
It takes more courage to do that than it does to... because, look, a fighter's a fighter. These fucking dudes are tough no matter what, all right? So... It's, they could stay in there and they could just continue to get the shit beat out of them in order to look cool in front of everybody, or, maybe they have a fear that if they don't do that, people are going to judge them for it. David Rickles had none of those fears. He said, you know what? fuck
Or-
this shit. I don't want to get hit like that again. I'm getting out of here.
Or doing something like that, honestly, like could fuck your career up.
Exactly.
Like the promoter may look at that and go like, we don't want this guy in here, and that is a response of fear to stay in there in that scenario.
David Rickles knew that he was not winning that fight, and he made a judgment call. Good for him.
Yeah, good for him. Yeah, no, I mean no disrespect by saying that, but that is a really unusual scenario for him to be like, ow, I'm done. Get me out of here.
Yeah, no, it was very odd. I didn't even, when I first started watching it, I didn't even quite understand what was going on.
Yeah.
I had to rewatch it a few times
Well,
just to get the gist.
Yeah,
but-
if you recall, he kind of did this weird, like, he was still in it for a second, and he's kind of like looking at the ref. He's all, no. Let's put a stop to this.
Yeah, they're gonna. I almost feel bad for Michael Venom Page in a way because he's in a very precarious position right now because he's too dangerous of a fighter for most of the top guys to really want to take a fight with him. Too dangerous of a fighter with not a big enough name, but he's way too good of a fighter and too dangerous for the lower level guys to want. He's in that stage right now where it's going to be really hard for him to find a fight. And to the point where I guess Bellator is even encouraging him to take boxing matches to help build up his brand because they just can't find him fights in MMA.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about MVP. I've seen him fight a couple times, and he's just he's been a starcher. He just, you know,
Was he there at he was there at your fight, right?
Was
he came out, yeah. He didn't fight, but he came out and like they introduced him.
Right, I remember that, yeah.
Did you see him backstage or anything? No.
How about this shit got my dick hard? How about Gegard versus Carvalho?
Yeah.
Dude.
Gegard went out there and fucking...
First of all, before we even say what happened, Gegard, I've been a fan of him since the first time I saw him beat the dog shit out of fucking, out of Babalu in Strikeforce. I was like, because I didn't know who he was. I'm a Babalu fan, and I saw him just cleanly dismantle Babalu.
Yeah, he's a very, the way, if you guys haven't seen Gegard fight, he's got a real interesting style, because he
looks like he's asleep.
Yeah, he's like an Armenian Fedor.
Yeah.
His mannerisms. And he actually, his
Came
last
from
fight...
Fedor's camp, didn't he?
Yeah,
Originally?
he used to train with Fedor.
He used to train with
and
Fedor.
his last fight before leaving, he chose to leave the UFC because he didn't like his contract. His last fight before leaving the UFC was he beat Weidman. So, I mean, he's up there as being one of the top middleweights. But, yeah, man, he really went to work on him, huh?
Yeah, he went out there and immediately drive doubled Cavallo to the ground. Really nice drive double, clean, and drags him to the ground. Then I think Cavallo just got right back up, and then Gegard did it again. Just drove him to the ground again, and just totally dominated him. Got him smushed against the cage, and then started teeing off with him with hands.
Yeah,
he got him into position where he could just boom, 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 and
very solid grappling for a guy who doesn't necessarily have a wrestling background.
Right. Oh yeah, but he always has had really good grappling.
Yeah.
Like he's always had competent grappling against good grapplers. By the end of the fight, when Cavallo was just sitting there against the cage going like, what the fuck just happened to me? Like, he looked kind of sad. Just looked like, this is a guy who hasn't lost in 15 fights, and he's, the Bellator champion, and he's just like...
It was probably, I think that's what happens a lot of times with some, it could go either way, right? You've had guys who come over to Bellator from the UFC and don't really do all that well, like Benson Henderson. But then you have other guys who've came over and who've done awesome, like Gegard. And even Gegard, his first fight was tough. He fought Shlemenko, and that was a close fight.
That was, I remember that.
Which there's nothing wrong with that, because like we said earlier in the podcast, Shlemenko's a really solid fighter.
Oh, yeah. Shlemenko is highly
He's
skilled.
fun to watch, too.
Yeah.
He's got a fucking great spinning back kick.
I vaguely remember that him not looking that good in that fight either, though. Like, I remember him being a little, like, off.
Yeah, no, he did look off. There was something in the first round.
Yeah.
His eye got swollen shut, and I think that contributed to it.
Right.
But Shlemenko's a weird fighter, though. I mean, you can't judge somebody based off of one performance. Like, Shlemenko's the type of guy where he's a super, super unorthodox style.
Right.
So he's a hard guy to prepare for.
Sure.
So
very hard guy to prepare for. Speaking of somewhat unorthodox fighters, though, Gegard wants Rory next.
Yeah,
just came
and
up
Rory
and
wants
asked for
that.
it.
They both really want that fight.
Yeah.
Because why not? There's
Dude,
there's
that's
no
a-
reason why wouldn't they want it? I mean, there's no really other than if they decided to do Michael Page versus Rory.
Mm-hmm.
There's not really any other big fights for Rory in that weight class, and there's no other big fights really for Gegard in
Yeah.
that weight class.
We got to bump MVP up to champion level.
Yeah.
Get everybody fighting him, but there's some interesting matchups there. But I'd really like to see Gegard versus.
It's an
Rory.
interesting matchup. If I had to do a prediction now, I think Gegard is too big. I think to me he's they're different but similar in the sense that they're both really good, not from a traditional wrestling background, but both really, really high level good grapplers.
I think that Rory is a better straight wrestler, and I think Gegard has a little bit better like jiu-jitsu based
Ground control.
control.
Yeah, there is subtle differences. Rory's got a striking. Rory's got real good jab, but Gegard's got a good jab too. They
think
both have really good boxing.
I think Rory has better. They both have good boxing, but I think Rory has better kicks, a little bit better, more. He has more diversity in his striking, but I think Gegard has a little faster hands, and I think Gegard has more
power maybe.
Yeah, I think he has more power and a little bit more effective straight line punching, like jab cross. Like I think he could.
It's an interesting fight, but I guess I would almost compare it to like Covington versus RDA. I think just the size would.
You think he's that much bigger than him though?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, he could be.
I bet on paper, like I'll look it up right now what their height and weight is. On paper, he probably doesn't look like he's that much bigger. But I think when you actually see the frame of the two of them next to one another, I think Gegard is quite a bit more heavily muscled than Rory.
Okay.
But,
Yeah, Rory's pretty slender.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Rory is 6 feet. Obviously, he fights at 170. They got a reach on here. They don't put reach on here. So Rory's 6 feet. Let's see, what is Gegard? I think Gegard is like 6'1", maybe. Let's see. Looking up Gegard Mousasi's height, but having trouble finding it. Here we go. He's 6'2".
Okay.
So yeah, he's got a couple inches on him. He's a black belt in judo. Huh.
Gegard is?
Yeah.
Yeah. That kind of doesn't surprise me. He does have a little bit more of like that judo movement style.
Yeah. Fucking Gegard, look, dude, he's on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 fight win streak. And his last loss was against Uriah Hall in 2015, flying knee and punches. That was the one where he got caught. But then he fought Uriah Hall again in 2016 and just handled him, avenged that loss.
Right.
So yeah.
Taking back that loss, he's on quite a streak.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always I always find that really fascinating when a fighter does that, when they're just like, you know what? I don't like that fucking loss. And they just go back and
they go do something about that. Yeah.
Can you believe Rory McDonald's only 28?
Yeah, he was super
Still
young,
only
like,
28.
yeah.
He's been around for so long
Yeah.
now.
Well, when I first saw him fight, he was really young. When he
was
fought,
only like 21.
Carlos Condit. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was dominating Carlos Condit
He was.
until he got flipped on his back and got fucking permanent goggles beaten into his face.
He was 20 in that fight. That was back
Yeah.
in 2010. Yeah, I do remember that. And then after that, he went on a hot streak, and then he had those 2 losses to Robbie Lawler.
Mm-hmm. Those were great fights.
Those were great fights, but it's still strange to me because when I picture Robbie Lawler and Rory McDonald, I just instantly kind of just picture Rory as being a better fighter than him. But just for whatever reason, Robbie just has the style to.
Robbie is really, really good at his style though. Like the thing is, Robbie Lawler. It's hard to compare them skill wise because their styles are so different.
Yeah.
I think that lanky kind of long punch, long strike style has a hard time against a guy like Lawler who has really good takedown defense and that tight, shelled up striking defense.
Yeah, it's
great
just
head movement, great.
It truly is a styles make fight things, because if you look at it, like, okay, one thing I would say, the first thing I thought of right off the bat is I could never picture Rory losing to somebody like Dos Anjos, and Dos Anjos beat Lawler. But then again, you look at Lawler's record, he's got a loss to Tyrone Woodley.
Yeah.
Rory beat Tyrone Woodley. It's
Right.
just like you have endless combinations that you can go back and forth
you just
with.
can't play MMA math. It doesn't work.
No.
But yeah, it was
Well,
a lot of interesting fights. I hope you guys enjoyed our recap of it. I think that's about it for today. Did you have anything else you wanted to contribute?
no, I think that's about it.
Yeah. So had a lot of fun going over this.
Got everything off my chest.
I know this was really
It's really been weighing heavy on me.
Yeah, but we will be back soon with some more movie reviews and a lot more fun stuff that's going on in the world right now. But,
We got some shit to talk about.
We got a lot to talk about, but today we got to cut it short. This is probably our shortest podcast yet, actually. This has really just been a fight recap.
Yeah.
But, as usual, thanks for joining us. And you can find me at Bone Cutrone on Instagram and Facebook.com/Bone Cutrone.
You can find me at ML_intrinsic resistance for all of my fitness related things. And if you want any of my reviews, you could go to Matt Reviews Media on Instagram.
And if you guys want to hear us start really producing some higher quality sound work, check out our Patreon page and send us a little something to keep these fucking podcasts rolling cleanly, because we've been having mic problems today.
Yeah, we were having some mic issues. Get on our goddamn Patreon page right now.
Backandbone.com or backandbone.podbean.com.
Yes.
And there's going to be a link to our Patreon page on there. So check us out. Thanks again for joining us, guys.
Thanks.